Good day, and welcome to our listening and viewing audience. Thank you for joining our media conference today. This morning, a team of government ministers held virtual discussions with members of various business organizations, the private sector, and other key stakeholders to listen to and understand with a view and aim to addressing some of the concerns facing businesses as a result of COVID-19. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our panelists who will provide an update on these discussions. Our panelists for today are the Honorable Stuart Young, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, and also the Chairman of the Ministerial Committee that facilitated this morning's meeting. In addition, we also have Senator the Honorable Paula Gopi-Skoon, Minister of Trade and Industry. I am Ria Rollo-Boyer, Manager Corporate Communications here at the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and your moderator for today. I now invite Minister Young to provide a general overview on today's meeting. Minister Young.
Thank you very much, Ria. Good afternoon, viewing public of Trinidad and Tobago, and my colleague, I should have said first, Senator the Honorable Senator Gopi-Skoon, Paula Gopi-Skoon, and to members of the media who have joined us here this afternoon. We have literally, just a few moments ago, ended quite a productive and cordial meeting with members of the business industry in Trinidad and Tobago. And what I'd like to do is say that the ministerial colleagues who were with me for the course of this morning's meeting were Minister Gopi-Skoon, our Minister of Trade and Industries, Minister of Works and Transport, Minister Sinanan, our Minister of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, Minister Randall Mitchell, our Minister of Sport, Minister Shamfa Kujo. And we had almost a 2-hour, I think more than a 2-hour meeting with various stalwarts in the business community representatives. And I think what I'd like to do is ask Minister Gopi-Skoon just to quickly run through the list of those who were present from the business community for a very productive meeting this morning. And then I'll go into a very brief summary of some of the discussions we had and what it is taking place. Minister Gopi-Skoon.
Thank you very much, Minister Young. I'm sorry about that glitch, but members of the media, good afternoon to you all. I will just apprise you of the list of attendees at this morning's meeting. Firstly, we had represented the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce. This is Mr. Charles Parshley, who is recently nominated as president. Also joining the TTCISC team was Mr. Riaz Ahmed, who is the outgoing president. Also representing the TTCISC, but the Tobago division was Diane Haddad, who is the president of the Tobago division. From AmCham, we had their president, Patricia Gani, and also from the Confederation of Business Chambers, representing 14 business chambers, that is President Jai Liladar Singh, and joining him from the San Fernando Greater Chamber also was Mr. Karan Singh. The Sangre Grande Chamber of Commerce is not a member of the Confederation, so we also had them in, and Kenneth Sharon represented them. He's the vice president of the Sangre Grande Chamber. Also with us was the president of the Supermarkets Association, would be Rajiv Dipti, no stranger to us at all. The president of the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Services Industries, Mr. Mark Edgehill. Also, the Trinidad and Tobago Contractors Association was represented by their president, Mr. Glenn Mahabir Singh, and of course, the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association, represented by their president, Trisha Kusal. Let me not forget as well the Downtown Owners Business Association, Mr. Gregory Abu, president, was also with us this morning. So it was a full house. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister Gopi Skoon. As Minister Gopi Skoon has quite rightly pointed out, we had a full house and quite a productive session this morning. What I'd like to say at the outstart is that government's position has been and continues to be that we are willing to listen and that we are all ears. We're listening to persons. This morning was a formal meeting with those leaders of the business community, recognizing that there may be some who couldn't make it to the table because of the limited space, but they did give us the commitment that they would represent the views of their membership. Government is listening. Government listened. And what we told the members of the business community is what we're looking at is a phased reopening of our economy. But of course, any phased reopening has to take in place, and the main determining factor is going to be the public health and safety of our citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, as it has always been since we began managing this pandemic that started in January of last year. So that continues to be the government's commitment. There was very open discussion, a number of matters were put on the table. And one of the main takeaways is we asked for all of these representatives to canvass the views, canvass the options, canvass the different solutions they see for going forward, and to send it to us in writing to this ministerial committee. Minister Diyal Singh, who is part of this committee, couldn't make the meeting this morning. But the Ministry of Health, we will then sit down with as we begin templating how we're going to open and reopen the economy, but to reopen it in a safe manner. We have been managing this pandemic now for well over a year. There has been previous rollbacks, previous move forwards, and you all would recall that last year, April, May, we had a phased opening. There was a phase 1, a phase 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and as it goes forward, we're going to be using a similar template, but we are open to discussing because a lot has changed and there are other things that come to the table now for us to consider when we're working this out. We also gave a commitment at the end of the meeting that would not be the only engagement with the business community. And we are also doing this. So, for example, in the Ministry of Energy, and wearing my hat as the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, from day one, we have been committed and we have been having constant dialogue with those persons in the energy sector, and we've kept the energy sector going. And that is something we should all be proud of. That is a great achievement during this difficult period of a pandemic. Right now, we continue to monitor the numbers. As you all are aware, we're in a state of emergency. One of the things that we discussed is one of the ways that is accepted to bring down the science, to bring down the number of positive cases on a daily basis, and therefore the deaths, is for us to restrict and limit movement of persons, which is why we went into a state of emergency in the first place. I was very, very happy and very encouraged by the tone of the meeting this morning, and in particular, want to jump straight into one of the topics that everyone raised was that of vaccination. We continue to give the commitment that the government is doing everything it legally, possibly, and ethically can to get a supply and a consistent supply of vaccinations to Trinidad and Tobago. That is ongoing. You all are seeing that program continue. The Minister of Health and his personnel will continue to give us updates on that. What we ask for the commitment of the business community is helping us to address any vaccine hesitancy that there may be out there, because we're finding as we go forward with our vaccination program, even though persons talk about a desire to be vaccinated, there is still, unfortunately, a level of vaccination hesitancy. So we got some feedback from the various sectors. Of particular note was Mr. Dipti from the Supermarkets Association, who told us of the experience he's having, and we've asked for their assistance going forward to assist with the whole vaccination conversation and to encourage persons to get vaccinated. That was quite positive. Another interesting point that came up is the business sector, in particular under AmCham and Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as well as the Downtown Merchants Association, DOMA. They were advocating to us today that any further restrictions that are needed to be put in place by the government, it is better to take a bitter medicine now and hopefully have the results sooner rather than later. We listened. Our purpose there today was to listen. There was absolutely nothing that was shot down, and we're waiting to get all of the representations and more to us in writing for further consideration. but I'm certain that they will talk about that they were prepared to take more difficult measures or more restrictive measures at this stage. The government has made no decisions. Another point that we pointed out is the date of July 7th is the date that is put on the public health regulations, the current public health regulations, which are really to do with mandatory mask wearing, management of our borders, and other things that are under the public health regulations as separate from the state of emergency regulations. I'd like to take this opportunity to make an important point that the July 7th date is not any drop-dead date. As the government has shown over the management in the past year and a half, we are prepared to amend our regulations as the health personnel, the public health experts, advise us to do in that meeting with the Prime Minister, the Minister of Health, Minister of National Security, and health experts. Whenever we meet, we are always prepared to take on board whatever suggestions are made and to amend our regulations. So there's no need for a fear that everything is going to remain in a closed state until the 7th of July. It really depends on how we see the numbers going and the management of the COVID spread. And that is what guides us. And we have shown time and time again, both the state of emergency regulations as well as the public health regulations can be amended as the government deems fit, any way that we deem fit over time. And I think the business community appreciated that reassurance from us. We had discussions on the manufacturing side, we had discussions on the contractors side, the Supermarkets Association, the service industry side, and everybody put forward their various perspectives and importantly, what they see as some considerations we should take when we're doing the template for this phase reopening. I think one of the takeaways as well was there can be persons who are asking for predictability and for consistency. We've learned, one thing the world has learned is there is absolutely no guaranteed predictability in the management of COVID. We're seeing that take place even in some of the countries who have access to all of the vaccines. So we had spent some time talking about that. You would see, for example, in the United States, it is less, hopefully not by now, it's about 40% of the population have received total vaccination, about 60, but under 70% the one shot. And we're seeing how they are reacting to it. The same thing in the United Kingdom. And what we discussed as well is even in those jurisdictions where they have vaccine availability, the challenges they are having in having persons vaccinated, but also at times the virus continues to spread with different variants, how they have to roll back certain measures you would have seen in the United Kingdom within the recent past week. So there was a lot of open discussion about the government's management. And what we did is we said we remain committed to listening to the business community. And I want to give this assurance. The government does not want anything closed a day, an hour, or a minute more than needs to be done for our public health to be in a manageable situation. And it is the safety of our citizens that drives our decision making. There was a lot of conversation about the vaccination and persons being permitted to travel abroad to get vaccinated and come back. As I said, it might be too premature to make a decision on that now, but it is under consideration. The government will take advice with respect to that. That is a policy decision. And right now, I think because of where we are, that is a premature decision to be made, but it is certainly something that will be given active considerations. We listened to the smaller businesses and those from the Confederation talk about the SMEs and the difficulties they are facing. We as a government, I want to give this reassurance, are very aware of how frustrated persons may be, how difficult it may be for persons in the business community, the workers in the business community. We are concerned about our vulnerable persons who may have to stay at home right now where they're not able to work throughout their various workplaces. These are all of part of the basket of consideration that the government is taking on board. The conversations we may need to go and have with those leaders in the financial sector and how they may be able to assist the smaller businesses. We heard about easing and difficulties with cash flow, the TNTech bills. So it was really a meeting where a lot was put on the table for government's consideration. And government gave the commitment that it's not going to end there. We will try to have another meeting in the next week. Because right now, from a public health perspective, what we're doing this week is we're looking at the numbers. We're looking at our caseload. We're looking at what is taking place. Is the spread slowing down? Are we heading in the right direction? And those are the types of information that would govern the decisions that we can make and the regulations that can be amended going forward one way or the other. Right now, there is no decision by the government. The Prime Minister had asked that this ministerial committee meet with the business community to get an idea of where their thinking is, what it is their suggestions are to be made for us to then give it consideration. And it was quite a fruitful meeting from that point of view. We heard from the Tobago side, from Ms. Diane Haddad, and in particular, and also we also heard, as persons were putting forward suggestions, what they see happening in other jurisdictions. For example, some of our CARICOM brother and sister jurisdictions nearby. And one of the points the government made is, whilst we always take a look at what is happening in other sovereign states, other jurisdictions, there is a lot more that has to take place in government decision making as we try to balance for all across our sector. So what you may see happening in an island that has less than a population of 100, 200,000 is very different to what could be implemented successfully here with a population of 1.3 million. So for example, some of the suggestions about use of surnames on certain days for persons to go out, that is a lot more difficult to implement here. It's not that we weren't prepared to listen to that, and we're closing a door to that, but it's a lot more difficult to implement those types of measures here. One of the suggestions made, for example, is to lengthen the curfew hours from 6 to 6, but the Supermarket Association and others agreed with the government that the current position is you don't want to shorten the hours. If you shorten to 6 p.m., it means groceries, pharmacies, etc. may have to close at 4 p.m. to allow their workers to get safely home. And then what that does is it pushes a rush on a congregation of persons. But again, today's meeting by the ministers, led by myself, my colleagues, it wasn't for us to get into any decision making. It was for us to listen to potential solutions, difficulties, which is what we did, and in particular, what are the options going forward as we begin to look at, hopefully, a reopening of our economy on a phased basis. And I think in a nutshell, that is where we are at. We will continue to engage with them, but the government will continue to factor everything in when we meet with our health personnel and the Prime Minister and other members of the team and the Cabinet to make the decisions to safely, that's the important thing, to safely take us forward, because we are still seeing some of the behavior that leads to spread of this awful virus. So we were very happy to engage the business sector and to hear some of their suggestions as to how we go forward. And we remain committed to doing so. And there will also be other meetings with other persons in our sector and our societies. I mean, Minister Mitchell was there because we are very aware of what is going on with our artists. For example, one of the recent conversations he had with me and he would have with other members of the Cabinet, the Prime Minister, etc., is our artists who may need to travel away to keep their brand growing and this type of thing. We're aware of what is going on with sports, etc. So today, the message is that the government has met. This is the first of many discussions, but we have always remained. I want to disabuse anyone of thinking that the government has not been. Minister Gopi Skoon, other ministers under her patronage, the Minister of Works, the Minister of Agriculture, Lands and Fishery, have been engaging in discussions, have been engaging in the energy sector. Every minister in his or her field has been engaged with our stakeholders outside there. And that then comes back to the table to assist us with decision making. One of the things we made very clear is it's difficult in government that you're not going to be able to please everyone. But what you must do is listen to everyone and then make decisions balancing, in particular, under a pandemic, the public health of everyone. And I think that's what I want to say at this stage as we go forward. And I'd pass it over now to Minister Gopi Skoon. I'm not sure there's anything else that she would like to add, but I'd like to give her that opportunity. Also, before I pass it over to her and then we open up for some questions, I'd just like to say everybody has a role to play. So we know there's certain businesses who are trying to find ways around the regulations. Minister Gopi Skoon brought up a few examples this morning, and it really is putting persons at risk. It's putting your workforce at risk. It's putting persons at risk. For example, in furniture and appliances, we took a decision in this phase. Everything is phased. Nothing is shut forever. We don't even want to keep things shut for months, weeks. I mean, the quicker we can reopen, the better for everyone. But to have some persons getting around the regulations, even breaking the regulations and saying, well, we're doing it online, we're doing deliveries, that is not in keeping with the spirit of what we're trying to achieve which is a fair reopening for everyone on a phased basis going forward. So I really would like to put in my own personal public plea to everyone. Please try to work with us, work with the government, work with everyone going forward. Not try to find ways to get around the regulations, but let's abide by it. The movement of persons is what spreads the virus. We're trying to reduce that movement. And if we do that now, we are going to see the better days. We've had some peaks and some valleys with dealing with this virus and the management over the past year and a half, and we will do the best that we can to take us forward. Minister Gopi Schoon, if there's anything you'd like to add in giving a report of some of the discussions we had this morning, I'd welcome it at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. And again, we are very grateful for the opportunity to have held this virtual meeting with all of the business stakeholders. We really want to thank them, and we do recognize the significant sacrifices that they would have made from March 2020 to really ensure the preservation of our local economy and to also ensure the preservation of lives. So very appreciative of the role that the business community has in the past played and continues to play, as they will remain an integral stakeholder to government and to the resurgence of our economy, in particular the small and medium-sized enterprises, as they are really considered to be the backbone of the economy. We want to thank the business community as well for their exhibited support for the state of emergency and for the curfew which is in place. They're the ones who really made a strong call. Government was thinking along those lines, but again, I think as a collective, we came up with what is the right solution for this particular time. We continue to meet with our business stakeholders. We are available at all hours. I can tell you I get calls even on a Sunday evening, and we want this to happen for clarity, for suggestions, for finding a way forward. We want to work with our business owners to ensure that they can get back on track, and that we also can do that. But at the first instance, it's getting the back of that virus and getting us to the point where we really can operate in a way that all can benefit from. We spoke a bit about this morning about digital platforms, and we have always encouraged in the Ministry of Trade and Industry, MSMEs in particular, to take advantage of e-commerce, and we're very satisfied that there are now all of these platforms, bank platforms and non-bank platforms, that facilitate e-commerce. And indeed, this is the way forward. But caution, I think for now, it has to be digital and contactless. So digital, if we go the long way, it means that we can probably have digital going and people going into their warehouses and loading up trucks and moving and delivering goods. That's not what we have to do right now. Right now, we're continuing. You can do the digital, but it must be contactless. And therefore, Minister Young raised it. It's something that I talked about as well. I'm noticing a vast number of restaurants that are out there. We know how anxious you are to keep your employees employed, but you can't operate in the back room. Can't operate in the back room and put people at risk. So I'm really recognizing the work that we all have to play, but at the same time ensuring that we break the back and we get the numbers down. And we remain available. Minister Young has asked all of the participants this morning, get your list together, get your suggestions going, prioritize them, and continue working with the ministry. We will support that. We would be presenting these to the Ministry of Health, Minister Young, who's coordinating, and to ensuring that we arrive at solutions to the mutual benefit of all of the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago. That's where we are now. We spoke a bit about the manufacturing sector. A lot, as you know, the manufacturing sector contributes greatly to the economy. In terms of not in terms of employment, having more than 50,000 persons employed in the sector, but also in earning foreign exchange. They are keen exporters alongside the energy sector. So the numbers may not as large as the energy sector, but we are, in fact, the manufacturing sector, the ones who really employ considerable people. So we are looking, we are working, and working very closely with the TTME and looking at how we may be able to peel away the restrictions when the time is right. It has to be when the time is right. And we have, at the same time, to keep listening to the health specialists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Gopi Schoon. Just to add to what Minister Gopi Schoon has quite eloquently and accurately said, we are aware, the population is aware that there's certain persons who are trying to find ways around the regulations and restaurants continuing to operate. We understand the difficulties. We understand how difficult it is for your workers not to have the jobs, for them not to be able sometimes with great difficulty to be able to pay bills and this type of thing. The government does not want this for the population, all right? The government is not asking businesses to close and movement to be reduced for the population. The only reason we're doing it is to try and reduce movement to bring down the numbers. So whereas you're taking those types of decisions, they may be selfish decisions. Just understand that all it is doing is continuing to increase the length of time for us to get back to the rolling back and the phased reopening of our economy, which we so desperately want to get to. I think that's enough from our perspective at this stage. I'd just like to add to what Minister Gopi Schoon said about thanking the business sector for taking the time out. They had some pre-meetings before coming to ours today to corral and to hear the suggestions of their membership. We will continue to keep engaged, but importantly, it will continue to factor in to our decision making with our health personnel as we go forward and we guide Trinidad and Tobago in this difficult time. It's still a difficult time globally, but we will get through this with everyone's cooperation. So I thank them for that. And maybe now is a good time for us to open up to take some questions from you, the members of the media.
Yes, we have a question from Mr. Rishi Harinanan. You can please state your name and the media house you represent before asking your question, please.
Not hearing.
Yes, hi, Rishi Harinanan from Rhythm Communications Network. Just a couple of questions, Minister Young. Is there a deadline or a set timeline for them to make any submissions? And also, you talk about opening up when the time is right, when the numbers are going down. But we can't really do that unless we get to vaccinations, because and I'm asking here, if we go to open back without enough of the population being vaccinated, then are we running the risk of the problem of high numbers persisting?
Thank you very much for those two questions. The first on the timeline, as I said at the outset, this is going to be a continuing conversation. So we expect to continue to have to manage the country through this pandemic. The world, the globe continues to be in a pandemic. So we're going to have to continue managing it. So this is us just continuing our conversation. So there's no timeline, there's no deadline. The sooner they get the existing suggestions to us, it can factor into our decision making, where we as a government right now are sitting down with the health personnel to plan, if numbers go down in a manner that we're hoping they do over a period of time, what is it that we can open back to? So it's going to be a continual conversation and a continual provision of information to us in our decision making. That's the first point. With respect to vaccination, we spent quite a lot of time this morning discussing the vaccination. As you've heard the Prime Minister say, as you've heard our health personnel say, we must want to get to herd immunity as quickly as possible. We're looking at all of the ways, but it comes down to vaccine availability. And anyone who tells you differently is basically misleading you. So we are utilizing all of the vaccines we possibly can get done. The Ministry of Health has been leading the charge. The Prime Minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs have been leading the charge in conversations. I too have been having certain conversations to try and get more vaccines into our vaccine pool to assist in the vaccination program. And as that happens, as they become available, we will tell it to the population. So to answer your question, it is between a rock and a hard place at times, because yes, we want to get back to reopening our economy. We're going to do it on a phased basis, but there will always be the risk until you get up to that herd immunity level that there will be setbacks along the way. Every country in the world is going through it, even those who have the availability of all of the vaccines. As I said, go and look at the unfortunate experiences in some places, for example, like the United Kingdom, where they have a great vaccination program, but they're having some setbacks due to certain variants. And also they may reach a stage where persons are giving them difficulty in vaccine acceptance.
Thank you, Minister. Now we'll take a question from TTT News. Mr. Lala?
Yes, hi. Good afternoon, Minister Young.
Afternoon.
Minister
Gopi.
Yes, right. Right. Minister Young, the Supermarket Association, did they bring up any suggestions? I know they would have brought up a suggestion in their previous media release about a week ago with regards to traffic wardens or police at groceries to help with that crowd control, with that crowd traffic and so on. And secondly, for me, are you then saying that the business community will be consulted prior to the phase reopening to prepare in advance of these discussions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Lala, for those two questions. The specific item of the use of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and traffic wardens didn't come up in discussions this morning, but it wasn't meant to be exhaustive. We did ask for them to put forward recommendations, suggestions as in writing that can then be considered. We have heard the Supermarket Association say over time the difficulties they sometimes have, their various members, in managing crowds. The state is here to assist, but we certainly can't put a police officer or a traffic warden at every supermarket, in particular the smaller ones throughout. So the responsibility does come down to them, but we are prepared to listen. I know when I was wearing the former hat as Minister of National Security, one of the things that the Commissioner did and implemented, for example, coming down to month end, is get certain ERP vehicles to patrol some of the larger supermarkets where we expected gathering. I mean, that will continue. We will continue using the state's resources to assist in the safety of our people of Trinidad and Tobago going forward. With respect to, sorry, Suna, I didn't make a note of your second question. What was the second question again?
Right, sorry, the second question was based on your comments, will the business community be consulted?
Yes, consultation. Okay, thank you very much. I mean, this morning was a conversation, it's a discussion. It is us just listening. The government has consistently listened. In fact, I had to remind when I was on our radio program earlier this morning, it's wrong to say that the government has not been available. As I say, Minister Gopi Schoon, other ministers were always available. We're always having conversation. But you all would recall the Prime Minister, under his stewardship, had put together the Roadmap Recovery Committee and had corralled a huge amount of persons from across the various business sectors to sit with the government to work out, and came up with quite a great document, the Roadmap to Recovery. That never stopped. Coming out of that, we have all continued to be in conversation. So it's not about formal consultation before we make decisions. We are constantly listening to persons, and that factors into our decision making. So no, there's no commitment that before we take a decision that we will have to go out and consult. It can't work that way when you're dealing with a pandemic. There have been occasions throughout the management of this, for example, that we've had to meet the Minister of Health, Minister of National Security, myself, and the Prime Minister, along with the health personnel, to respond to a situation that may be taking place, to respond to various things that may be taking place on that particular day where the health personnel want to have discourse with us, and we take decisions and regulations are amended, and it will continue in that frame. But what this provides is an opportunity for the business community to put forward their suggestions to us as we're looking at a phased reopening.
Thank you, Minister Young. Now we'll move to CL Communications.
Good afternoon, Adeline Singh, Caribbean Lifestyle Communications. I was just wondering, you spoke to vaccine hesitation. I was just wondering what businesses or what sectors of the economy are you getting the reports of vaccine hesitation? And then secondly, are you satisfied that there is enough e-commerce in Trinidad now that there is the heightened thinking that we should not be interacting with each other on face-to-face, but we should be more online? Are you satisfied that there are more online businesses and more e-commerce activity? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. with the vaccine hesitation, I mean, it is something we're seeing. So I have seen it as the Minister of Energy, where 4,000 vaccines were allocated to us. In that allocation, we then broke it down to certain frontline businesses and frontline workers in the energy sector. And then I was shocked to hear that when we had set up the appointments, some persons could not even make their quota initially. It is also something the Supermarket Association spoke to this morning, Mr. Dipti, where he told us he was basically doing a survey. And initially, it was only 25% of the workforce in supermarkets were expressing an interest. So there is a vaccine hesitancy. We don't have our heads buried in the sand. But what we also experience, and I have experienced it personally, is when you engage people and you start to discuss with them, and there's a lot of misinformation taking place on social media, for example, with vaccines, and you start to engage that and answer the questions immediately, you see certain persons swinging. So the Supermarket Association felt in their little limited survey that they moved from a 25% persons who are willing to take it up immediately. And after having a session with them yesterday where they provided the facts and the research, etc., so it moved up to about 75%. So that is the same type of experience we're having across the board when you engage people to just basically tell them, would you take the vaccine? You should take the vaccine. It is a similar experience. With respect to e-commerce, I will pass that over to Minister Gopi after I say this. One of the points and why it came up is currently retail, most of retail, if not all of retail, apart from provision of food and necessities, is supposed to be closed. All right? Even with e-commerce, there is a certain amount of movement that has to take place. Workers have to get the items out of stock. Workers have to prepare the items for delivery or prepare the items from pickup. So the e-commerce conversation we want to have is factoring that into maybe the next phase of reopening. How can we put that in place safer? So with respect to e-commerce, it is not that we're saying that is one way to beat the current system. And that's one of the difficulties we're having. There are certain businesses out there that are trying to beat the system. They think they're trying to beat the regulations in back rooms, carrying out e-commerce, trying to do deliveries or asking persons to pick up. By definition, that increases the movement, and it can be contributing to why we're not seeing the numbers go down as quickly as we would like. So people have to abide by the regulations. But as Minister Gopi mentioned, and I'm sure she will build on briefly, we want e-commerce going forward, but not right now, not that movement and that delivery system. Many people have engaged us. I'm sure the Minister of Trade gets a lot more than I do, but people were engaging me personally that their businesses are built where they can do the e-commerce platform. Another thing we're very conscious of that was brought to our attention this morning, don't make it difficult for the local businesses where our citizens, they may not be able to carry out their e-commerce, their online trading because of our present numbers, but you have persons being able to go via their skybox, order things from around the world, have it delivered. It's the same type of movement. So we want to move as quickly as we can to phase that in to the plan, the phase reopening. I don't know if Minister Gopi wants to add anything further to that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me just add a little bit about the whole question of e-commerce. And there is a national e-commerce agenda which the government has and which the Ministry of Trade is implementing. And over the last 2 years, there would have been several online training programs and webinars on how to market your goods and services online, geared specifically to in particular, the micro, the small and the medium-sized businesses, government financing opportunities for MSMEs, digital payment solutions for SMEs, and so on. So that the training programs have been on. We have had at least 600 participants on those, in addition to which we would have launched maybe 6 months ago the She Trades movement, where again on that platform we have another 300 to 400 women that are exposing their goods and services to the rest of the world through that platform. In addition, I can tell you now, particularly with the onset of the pandemic, banks, consumers, retailers, everyone is moving away from manual processes, and they're really eager towards these cash processes and towards really leveraging technology and the digital forms of payments. And that's the kind of activity that you're seeing in the marketplace. I can tell you the pandemic has brought this out, particularly, with as I said, among the MSMEs. What I have to say about that, and Minister Young alluded to that, is that yes, digital, but avoid contact. So in other words, much of what we are saying, yes, it's alive through all the various non-bank and bank platforms and so on. But a lot of it involves the movement of persons. And that's why you're saying, if digital, please, or as much as possible, contact less. There's no doubt about it that there might be a caterer who is taking orders and can deliver to your property and so on. That, in a sense, is not a lot of contact. But where you have restaurants actually bringing out their persons to cook and so on in the kitchens and then deliver to a supermarket, two wrongs are being done there. Number one, you're bringing out your employees when this is against the regulations. That's one wrong. And the second wrong is now you're taking that into supermarkets and you're adding another train of traffic. So it means that those persons know, hey, I can go in there now and I can get my meal every day, and it adds to the traffic, and precisely what we're trying to do, minimize. And yes, it's allowed, supermarkets can sell prepared foods, but not to the extent that we're seeing now, where every large, and I'm not only talking about small restaurants, I'm talking about very large restaurants are in fact doing that. They're having their kitchens operational, and they are in fact sending in their goods. But I've diverted a little bit about from the digital situation. And I'm saying, yes, as much as possible, we are encouraging the use of e-commerce, take advantage of it. But for this moment, I think we have to avoid contact as much as possible. I can tell you, and it's on social media now, the Ministry of Trade and Industry has something. I have the flyer here, this on the 4th of June, and it's another program, Digital Opportunities for MSMEs, Pivot Your Business to the Next Level. And there we will include several private sector platforms, like for instance, Planting Seeds. Planting Seeds has 250, and I'm sure by now, small businesses onto their platform. And then there are others like Shop Carry, QuickBox, Shop Hub. And so it's there, it is working, but in a sense, let's recognize the regulations and minimize the contact of persons in this period. And as soon as we're able to ease out of it, I'm sure that Minister Young, together with the health Minister of Health and the health specialists, would peel away and get us all back on track, and using these kinds of mechanisms to add to our trade and our revenues and so on.
Thank you very much, Minister Gopi Schoon. I don't know if you all can see, but I have the broadest smile on my face when Minister Gopi Schoon does what she does so passionately. And that I was smiling as she was making plugs for the continuation of exactly what she's been working on out of the Ministry of Trade and Industry. I couldn't help but give her a pat on her back there.
Thank you, Minister Young. Now we'll move on to TV6 News. Mr. Brown.
Good afternoon, ministers. Questions to the Trade Minister, first and foremost. Very quickly, in light of what you just said in terms of the issue of supermarkets and so on, and the, as you said, large restaurants now providing prepared meals and so on, I'm just wondering, in the context of delivery, food deliveries, or takeout, or that kind of thing, not takeout, sorry, deliveries of food from maybe some of those same restaurants, is that something the government could look at in the context of easing up what you would have identified as some of that demand at the supermarkets because of the prepared meals being put there, which is, as you are saying, raising some concern. That's one. And two, how has the state of emergency and the measures thereof been affecting interest in terms of, let's say, investment, foreign direct investment, so that, for example, could those, let's say if there's someone who's interested in investing in a project, a major project, but is fully vaccinated, would that person still have to go through, let's say, the quarantining procedures and so on? Is that a deterrent to foreign direct investment at this time? And I do have a question to Minister Young, but Minister Gopi Schoon.
Joel, thank you very much. And you asked a number of questions, and you asked about the FDI. And before that, you spoke a little bit, and I want to zero in on exactly what your question is, because you said about three things. If you don't mind, please.
All right, just to clarify, in terms of the issue raised about the supermarkets and prepared meals being available there and made available by restaurants, as you said, having employees come into the kitchens and so on, I'm thinking that one aspect of the demand for prepared meals could also factor into the fact that deliveries by those restaurants are now not allowed. Is that something the government could look at to help ease that demand in, let's say, those supermarkets and so on that are providing the prepared meals?
And yes, this morning when, in fact, earlier in the presentation, Minister Young would have said that that particular date, he said July 7th, I think it might be July 4th, but anyway, that particular date for the end of the public health regulations is not a rigid date, and that's what we have to keep in mind. It's not a rigid date. And in this morning, Minister Young invited all of the businesses to send us their submissions. And in that, you would have those prioritized businesses or activities that can begin to take place as we begin to peel away at the restrictions. As I'm saying, and so we're going to take the submissions from them. But again, at the end of the day, it's going to be the decision of respectfully, of the Minister of Health, the health personnel, the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister Young, those persons who look really at the numbers and how we can begin to peel or, begin to allow certain sectors, certain activities, certain movement to take place. So it's nothing that I can prescribe today, yes, those particular kinds of activities, but I'll rather leave it really broadly. Let's get the submissions. We know we have to look at curbside. We know we have to look at deliveries and that kind of thing. We know we have to do that, but I think we have to leave it in the hands of that particular body of persons who would be looking at both sides, the lives and the livelihoods. It brings us right back to there. You raised the question about FDI, and those activities are continuing. I can tell you firsthand, for instance, although we would have had to stop construction works on the Phoenix Park Industrial Estate, which is due for completion, was due for completion in December. Of course, we now have a setback, and we would look to see whether or not the date can be kept. But the question is, we have been, and through InvestTT, also to some extent through ETech, we have been in contact with all our local investors and our FDI investors as well. And we continue to deliberate, to collaborate, and to ensure that we get those on board. As a matter of fact, I can say publicly that we have in fact signed our first tenant for the Phoenix Park Industrial Estate. We would only do a release when the tenant is prepared to elaborate on the scope of their existence in the park. But to the direct question as to whether or not FDI work is continuing, I'll tell you, yes, InvestTT continues to work full-time. So, and there's the Ministry of Trade and Industry, ETech, and looking very closely at both our FDIs and our local investments as well. And I can tell you, and full praise to our local business community as well. There are a number of projects out there that our local business community that they are involved with. The extension of their existing businesses, the expansion of their product ranges, and so on. Through the TTMA, there is a goal to grow their exports to double their exports by 2025. And therefore, I can tell you, the work is continuing to facilitate local direct investment and foreign direct investment. The work goes on despite the restrictions that we currently are under. You asked whether or not those persons can come in. That's a matter for the Minister of National Security. Yes.
Thanks, Minister Gopi. Just to add to what Minister Gopi Schooner said, and in particular on the FDI, I can say without fear of contradiction, the answer is yes, because as former Minister of National Security, when I was sitting there, and I continue to be in constant contact with my colleague, Minister Hines, we have always facilitated, if there's foreign direct investment that needs to come in, for example, in the energy sector, you have turnarounds that need to take place. The answer is yes, even if you're fully vaccinated, you're still required to quarantine. But in the energy sector, we find ways to assist and to work with with personnel. For example, you do certain amount of quarantine out there where the energy sector will put you in a bubble. For example, in Louisiana or in Houston, for a certain number of days, you come in and then you go into a shorter quarantine. So we have, as a government, have continued to be flexible, and we are very conscious about not losing FDI, and Ministry of National Security plays an important role in that, with the constant consultation with Ministry of Health, as what Minister Gopi Skoon is saying, who will govern the safe allowances for it. But I don't think we've lost any FDI as a result. And the state of emergency, which is where you pegged it, I mean, the state of emergency is only going on two weeks old now. So that is not going to turn away persons who want to invest in Trinidad and Tobago. And we continue to do that. And she quite properly answered the delivery for food. We discussed that this morning. When you look at last year's phased reopening, one of the first things we had in the phased reopening, I have it in front of me, is curbside pickup and take-up. What we're really trying to discourage is people trying to be smart and beat the system. Restaurants and bars are not supposed to be open, saying, well, my restaurant isn't open to serve people, but I continue to have everybody in the restaurant cooking and then sending it down to certain establishments. You may think that you're getting away and you're smart and this type of thing, but what it could also be adding to is the spread of COVID. We want to open back things as quickly as possible, but in a safer manner as possible.
Thank you, Minister Young. Now we move to IETV.
Your mic.
Okay, Bina Hayes, IETV News. With regards to delivery services, not just restaurants, but smaller businesses are also offering delivery for other products as well.
Correct.
Is it because limited finances? Of course, as smaller businesses, the ones that operate from home, the ones that operate from their kitchens, from their living rooms, do they have access to government financing or assistance? And are there any plans to meet with the smaller businesses? I know you all met with the Chambers and Supermarket Association and so on this morning, but is there any plans or consultation with the smaller businesses, those who operate from home? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. The answer is there was representation this morning on behalf of the SMEs, the smaller businesses. The Confederation of Chambers of Commerce, as you know, Minister Gopi Skoon, I think, pointed out there are 14 of them that are in membership. You have Sandy Granny outside of that membership. They are all of the larger boroughs and all of these. So you have Arima, you have Gasparillo, you have Pinal, Debe, all in there. And they're the ones that really are representing the smaller businesses and the smaller businessmen. So we did hear from them. We are prepared to continue. The listening never stops. And we are very conscious of it. So one of the things we discussed, for example, this morning, is for the government to make representation to the financial sector. And as we sat here, persons were messaging me on my phone that they're having difficulties, for example, with the banks and a small, what I call a kindergarten service that has been out of business for last year, and how do they service their loans? So I'm certain at the government level, we will have conversations with the Minister of Finance, because I think it is something worthwhile us speaking to the financial sector about, to allow some more moratoriums, a little easing as we continue. This pandemic is global, so persons are struggling with the smaller businesses and this type of thing, and we're conscious of it. The Minister of Finance has addressed, as well as the Minister of Social Development, the web and the net of grants that are available for persons self-employed and otherwise who may be affected by difficulties coming out of some of the measures we've had to take. With the deliveries, it's come back to the same point Minister Gopi Skoon has articulated, which is, yes, the smaller businesses, you think you can jump in your car and go and deliver your goods, and we understand you're trying to make a living, but understanding that you're putting yourself at risk. You come to deliver items to me, I have contact with you, I am COVID positive, I've now spread it to you, you take it back home, you then go to deliver something to Minister Gopi Skoon. You've now passed on COVID not only to those who are at home with you, your other workers, but to Minister Gopi Skoon. She goes now into her environment and spread, and that is what we're seeing has taken place. That's what community spread is. And that is what we're trying to prevent during this phase. I want everyone to understand we are not in this current phase forever. We're trying to reduce the amount of time we have to remain in this current stay at home, but it really depends on the numbers and what the Ministry of Health and their personnel advise the Prime Minister and his team.
Thank you. Due to time constraints, we can take about 3 more questions. We have CL Communication who would like to ask one question.
I want to tell about the NEDCO.
One more. So, Nadaline, you can ask your question briefly.
Yes, I know TTT has another commitment right after ours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was just wondering very quickly, was digital passport and the implementation of a digital passport part of your conversation this morning with the business community? And then secondly, you touched on more moratoriums coming. Can you highlight what specific businesses are going to be part of that more moratoriums? Thank you.
Okay, let me just clarify before I go on, and there's a misquote somewhere. I did not say that more moratoriums are coming. I am saying that what we've just come out of is a morning period where we've been listening to suggestions, we've been listening to what the population is facing and different sectors of the population through the business community. One of the conversations raised was the potential of banks, financial institutions granting moratoriums to those who may be suffering as a result of the pandemic. The government listened to that. The government then will consider it. And the government may, there's no commitment, have conversations with the financial institutions who ultimately will make the decision, or it may be a Ministry of Finance policy directive taken by the cabinet and the central bank. So please don't think that there are going to be more moratoriums. It's something we're conscious of because we're listening with an empathetic ear. The other point about the digital passports, I'm not quite sure what you mean by digital passports. If you mean from a vaccination point of view, when we reach that stage globally, we're not there. Digital passports in terms of passports with chips, that's something the Ministry of National Security was looking at when I was there. And the conversation on topic of digital passports specifically was not discussed this morning. But as I say, this morning could only be a cross-section of conversation to take place. And we've asked now for submissions to be put to us in writing for consideration. I think you might have time for one more question.
One more. Yes. Mr. Harinanan, one more question, and we'll have to wrap up. We're not hearing you.
Your mic.
Yeah.
Yeah. One question to the Minister of Trade. It's a question that I would have asked to the Minister of Finance, and he would have said, the Ministry of Trade may have more information on it. And it's in relation to the number of businesses, small businesses that would have been shut down because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and also the accessibility for the NEDCO grants. Have people been accessing it since the latest set of restrictions have been put in place?
Thank you. Thank you.
We're hearing you, Minister.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for that question. I'm happy to add to the whole point about the NEDCO grants. Minister of Finance, when he spoke to the population only recently, did emphasize that he is looking at and having discussions with the minister with responsibility for NEDCO about making additional funds available. You would recall that a certain amount of funds were allowed to NEDCO, I think on the last occasion. Something like 1,800 grants, 1,800 grants were in fact extended to micro businesses. And these are grants up to $20,000. So I know, and we at the Ministry of Trade and Industry have also made some recommendations to the Ministry of Finance when considering the NEDCO grant and also the liquidity support grant, some of the things that we could take into consideration, particularly focusing on the small and medium-sized businesses. And I know that's where the minister's head is wrapped around, and also the minister with the responsibility for NEDCO as well. And we continue to work with all businesses and through the programs that have been made available to them, the continuing programs that are available, let's say for our exporters, through the Export Booster Initiative, and of course the individual support facilities through the Ministry of Social Development and also through the Ministry of Finance. Was there one thing else that you asked about?
Yes, Minister, I wanted to find out if you have a number of small businesses that probably would have been shut down since the COVID-19 pandemic. I know,
as you know, there are about 20,000 small businesses in this country, and they make up about 85% of the business population, so quite substantial. And this is why we have been focusing on them. And they're across the board. Let me tell you, in manufacturing, in the services industries, and in retail, they're across the board. And we know that they're feeling it, and we recognize their importance because, as Minister rightly said, they're across all of Trinidad and Tobago. And this is why attention has to be placed to the NEDCO facility, but also to those who would be employed through the Ministry of Social Development and Ministry of Finances programs as well. We know the pain of those 20,000 businesses, and they have been in contact with us, particularly through the Confederation of Regional Chambers. And we continue to dialogue, and we take on board as well all of their plans to get out of this, but recognizing that they are going to need some support. And this is why Minister Finance has said, he's going to look at the NEDCO facility once again. Again, there continue to be, let me tell you, there are other facilities that are available through the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Not enough people are coming to access those, where you can access up to $250,000 for the purchase of machinery and equipment. This is not the place for me to talk about it, but again, I invite the population, not just the population, but the small business population to look and see what government has available to you. In the agricultural sector as well, there are a myriad of opportunities that are available. Not all the time people are coming forward, tried, of course, of providing the necessary requirements. But again, you have looking forward, you've got to do what's right, position your business, fashion yourself so that you can work on the right side and get your business going and expanded and exported and so on.
Thank you. I think, Ria, just before you cut off, Mr. Jewel Brown has told me that he had one further question. I think we had just cut him short. So if we could just take that as the last question, because we really do need to close off.
Okay, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Your mic.
Your mic.
Not hearing.
Mr. Brown, we're not hearing you. Could you unmute? Right.
All right. I think I've got that sorted out now. To the Energy Minister, very quickly. The government has maintained that the issue of the energy sector has, in other words, the sector has continued to operate despite the restrictions and so on. It's included in the essential services. It's been included as an essential service in the state of emergency. But there are smaller companies in the energy sector, service providers, be it on the contracting side in terms of construction or transportation or whichever aspect of the service side that may have been particularly impacted during this period. What assistance, if any, is being looked at for those particular companies who may not be able to function or function as they would have if these measures were not in place?
Thank you very much, Jewel. I was having that conversation with Mr. Dax Driver from the Energy Chamber yesterday, trying to get a sense of where the Energy Chamber's head is at. As you know, not only the state of emergency regulations, but regulations from day one, we have kept the energy sector functioning and as an essential service, and that would include a lot of the services you've described. So, for example, we have exploration taking place on land in the southern part of Trinidad, and they have discussed with me, and I said, well, hold on, you all are essential. Just try to do your work in a safe environment, and we're really counting on persons to do that. So I don't think there's a huge amount of persons who provide the energy services that have been negatively affected. I'm sure that there are some, but we really have tried to keep the sector going. And when it comes to relief, that really comes down to the Minister of Finance, what he can afford. The energy sector is one of those sectors, one of those business sectors that certainly are at the higher chain of earnings in Trinidad and Tobago and globally. But it is something I'll be engaging the Energy Chamber on going forward. And we're all in this thing together. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Minister Young. And thank you, Minister Gopiskun. We have come to the end of our media conference, and I wish to thank the members of the media and the viewing public for joining us today. Please be safe and remember to continue to adhere to the COVID-19 protocols. Do have a good day.